disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So we take this down to the land down under. Because where censorship grows, nobody knows. And apparently, there's this irrationale after a horrific attack that happened recently in Sydney. And we get that, you know, when a scenario happens, when there's violence, when there's an attack that happens, we think irrationally, we have that sudden reaction to do as much as possible to protect ourselves. But this is beyond the opposite of protecting yourselves. This is beyond, you know, critically analyzing what happened on that day. Because Australia is apparently angry at X. Australia is apparently angry at social media, not the violent attack, not the scenario that took place against their own citizens, but they're angry that social media published out the videos. And this is an article here from the AP saying Australia judge bans X from sharing videos of bishop being stabbed in a Sydney church. And it goes on by saying an Australian judge on Monday ruled that social media platform X must block every user in the world from accessing video of a bishop being stabbed in a Sydney church, extending the prohibition beyond users in Australia. X Corporation, the tech company rebranded by billionaire Elon Musk when he bought Twitter last year, announced last week it would fight in court Australian orders to take down protests relating to a knife attack on Bishop Mira Emanuel in an Austrian Orthodox church as a service was being streamed live on April 15th. The material was geo-blocked from Australia but remained available elsewhere. But the regulator that made the orders, Australia's E-Safety Commission, which described itself as being the world's first government agency dedicated to keeping people safer online. Oh my God. Successfully applied to the federal court in Sydney for a temporary global ban on the sharing of video of the bishop being stabbed. In an after-hours hearing, Justice Jeffrey Kennett suppressed the footage of all X users until Wednesday, when an application for a permanent ban will be heard. X has 24 hours to hide the footage from users, the judge ruled. The Regular's lawyer, Stephen Tran, who had argued that geo-blocking Australia did not meet the definition of removal of the footage under Australian law. Tran said the footage was a graphic and violent video that would cause irreparable harm if it's continuing to circulate. X's lawyers Marcus Horn said that he had been unable to get instructions from his San Francisco-based client because it was early Monday morning in the United States. Musk has described E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman Grant as the Australian Censorship Commissioner. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said earlier criticized X for refusing to remove graphic posts about the knife attack on a bishop and priest at the Good Shepherd Church. He said social media posts misinformation, disinformation, and dissemination of violent images had exacerbated suffering from the church attack, which the two clerks survived, as well as a knife attack at a Sydney shopping mall 2 days earlier, which killed 6 people. Social media has a social responsibility. This is what the Prime Minister is saying. Social media has a social responsibility. I find it extraordinary that X chose not to comply and are trying to argue their case. Their case of being a platform. Their case of being a news story that's circulating on the internet. And they're not angry at the terror attack that took place that affected people. They're angry that the news broke out and people are finding it online. I get that people do the most irrational thing when it comes to horrific scenes. People don't think critically at the heat of the moment. But oh my God, is this absolutely deranged? Is this absolutely sinister that they're taking the extra jurisdiction step to go after a platform because people, users, were circulating images and video coverage presented by the news and sharing the news story to others. Wow. So here's a bit of the news coverage here in Australia. This is from Sky News in Australia. And they had on the safety commissioner. The fact that that's even a job position in the Australian government is hysterical. To protect people online. That's not that's not the government's responsibility. That's not the government's responsibility to overstep boundaries. The only reason they have an e-safety commissioner there to protect people online is that they don't want regular people to find out about the truth about their government. This is, again, Elon Musk puts it perfectly, that she is the commissioner for censorship. She is pushing an egregious amount of totalitarian censorship to make sure that people are stuck in line into that one narrative presented by the Australian government, that same government that screwed over people during COVID for for the heinous acts that they did during the lockdowns. Now they're trying to protect people from sharing news stories, as horrific they are. So listen to this.
The alleged attack, and Elon Musk really showing contempt for the government and its approach on this issue. What's your take on the tech billionaire?
So when it comes to the tech billionaire, like I've already said, I think he's a social media knob with no social conscience. He has absolutely no social conscience. Someone like that should be in jail and the key be thrown away. That bloke should not have a right to be out there on his own ideology platform and creating hatred, showing all this stuff out there to our kids and doing all the rest. I'm very interested to watch what the US is going to do with TikTok and how far that they can do with trying to get rid of that platform as well. So I think we're all watching on the United States at the moment to see what they're doing. But seriously, if we can move, and if that means in the next sitting that we can shut him down from doing this, because this is
happy to kick them out? You kick the platform out?
I don't give a stuff about the platform. I'm happy to go off the platform today, to be honest with you. I already have a list of all you journalists. I don't even know why we're on the platform. But I say this to everybody else. I'll be switching off X today. I'll be doing that before I get to the airport this afternoon. And I suggest that the other 226, there's 227 members of parliament do the same thing and show them that you mean business. Because when you want to lead by example, it has to happen from here. It has to happen from here. So start switching off X. Start throwing it back at him. But we've got to start from here.
Jackie Lambie, David Pocock, great to see you both. And
yes, he has no social conscience for creating a platform that people share and express ideas. He has no social conscience. Let's look towards, Mark Zuckerberg, for example, who is the more socially available to selling out to other governments and become a tool of the establishment and globalization. Or let's look at, Jeff Bezos. He's a more prominent billionaire. But Elon Musk, how dare he own this platform that allows users to share news stories as horrific they are, willing to share details with one another, share information so that we can gather information so we learn more about the horrific incidents that happened in Sydney, so we know more about the story. And she's saying it's absolutely heinous. It's unbelievable. We need to shut this down. If it were up to me, I would shut down X. I would take it right down. I serve myself. It comes from the higher up. I set the moral standard for the rest of you. That's what it sounds like what she's saying. That I know more about moral standards than Elon Musk or anybody else on Twitter, which now called X. That's just so unbelievable. Unbelievable. It comes from the top up. And that's why we got to disseminate against a social media platform, because users are sharing a news story. This is how deranged these people are. And if it wasn't, it doesn't even have to deal with the fact that there was a stabbing, that there was a violent attack. It has nothing to do with that. That's the example that they're using. That's the scapegoat and the scenario that they're using to defend their actions. But this is something that they probably wanted to do for a long time because, again, ever since COVID, ever since Ukraine, ever since Israel, ever since about anything, really, they have tried to further the means of censoring out the rest of us, censoring out the masses so that they control the narrative, because that's all they have left. All they have left is controlling the masses. Because people are starting to wake up, people are starting to realize the trickery, the scrutiny, the absolute malice, misinformation that comes from the government. They are the number one providers of misinformation. They're the ones manipulating. They're the ones propagandizing people. They're the ones that need to be scrutinized. Not everyday users of social media platforms that are trying to share information so that people are aware of this information, but the people that have been lying to you ever since. The people that are cultivating these lies and saying they're doing it in protection for you. That's what they used to say in fascist Germany. That's what they used to say in the Soviet Union. We have to do these horrific policies against you to protect you. That's what they're doing in Australia. That's what they're doing in Canada. That's what they're doing in the UK. That's what they're doing in the United States. Censorship knows no bounds. And this is where I've stated from the start that even if you hate people like Alex Jones, for example, even if you disagree with them and find them just absolutely repugnant and annoying, you taking down his speech, you taking down his platform because of stuff you disagree with is opening the floodgate for everybody. Because there is no limits when it comes to censorship. It's not specific people. It's not just targeting certain groups. It is opening the floodgates so that everyone is cultivated in this wave of oppression, in the ways of silencing out the many, so that we continue to form people into the main narrative, as deceitful and lying that narrative is. And you want to talk about social conscience? You want to talk about who has a higher moral stance? Elon Musk or the Australian government? Let me just show you an example of how gratefully morally acceptable the Australian government was at the height of the pandemic. Because I clear to recall that it was Australia that had the highest amount of brutality during the pandemic situation, where they were arresting people, they were knocking the heads off of random citizens, and they were even considering throwing people into a internment camp who are not vaccinated. So if we want to talk about morally acceptable platforms, if we want to talk about consciousness, who has a better social consciousness, Australian government should not be on that list, because this is what they're known for.
Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you...
And that, my friends, was all because a gentleman was not wearing a mask. All because he did not comply with big pharmaceuticals, the big giant global lobby firm that has bought out government by government, politician by politician, every ounce of the entire leadership around the world. All because he didn't comply with that. They ran him over, they kicked his head, and they brutalized him for his own health. So there is exactly the problem with this. That they're saying that this is for your safety, this is for your health, this is for the benefit of you, we're trying to protect you. Every time they mention that, it's the complete opposite. It is there to manipulate you, to oppress you, to go against you, but then they use those comforting terms to make you feel like that your government is your friend. They are your worst nightmare because they are doing this. They're doing this out in the open to ordinary citizens. And they're angry at Elon Musk for having a platform that allowed people to share a story, a horrific news story, to share to the general public so they're aware of this story. And just like the Sydney attacks with the knife, they try to censor this story too. They try to censor COVID stories. They try to censor anything about Ukraine. They called it disinformation. If you're posting anything about the wars, if you're posting anything about it, you're considered a Russian asset. You're considered, providing disinformation to people. And who is providing the most disinformation out there in the world is your governments. They are the number one supplier of disinformation to go against you. And now the Australian government, the land down under, is become the totalitarian dictatorship because people are sharing a news story. And now they have to have an e-safety commissioner go out and scold the masses to say, you are not allowed to be on social media. You need to get off X because of how dangerous it is. We're protecting you from information on X because that information could actually hurt us. It makes us look bad. And we can't look bad. We have to look like visionaries. I have a moral higher ground than someone like Elon Musk. And considering the fact that, they're angry at him for a platform that he owns, but not the other, 99.9% of criticism that we could be scrutinizing Elon Musk for. We could be arguing on, so many different aspects of compliance with the intelligence agencies. We could be talking about his formation with Israel Zionists to approach from a war. We could talk about his union busting. We could be talking about all this stuff. Those would be actually criticisms of Elon Musk that I'd be favoring. But they're angry at him because, no, they're not angry at that. They're angry at the fact that this guy has a platform available to people so that they could share information. That's what they're angry about. They're angry at the principle that a platform has free speech. And the Australian government can't have control of it. So now they have to have a federal judge come in and say, hey, if you don't take it down, we're going to have to ban X. We're going to have to make this go away. Just like how they're doing in the United States with TikTok. Like how they're doing in Canada when you can't share news stories on Facebook. It's all because they can't harness the control. They can't handle the truth. So they have to have their jurisdictions come out and fight against free speech and pretend that's for your safety.